I'm Marvin Scott. I have met some remarkable people over the course of my 60-year career, and none more iconic than Dr. Martin Luther King. He remains a symbol of the struggle for equality during the long civil rights movement. I got to meet Dr. King on two occasions. First, when he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and then a couple of years later, when he joined a march in Mississippi, a march after James Meredith, the man who cut through the color barrier at the University of Mississippi, was shot and wounded in Mississippi. Other members of the civil rights movement, led by Dr. King, decided to pick up this march against fear all the way to Jackson. And that's where I met him. I'm joined today on this journey with my dear friend and colleague, Monica Morales, and with Erik Cliette. Erik is the executive director of 100 Black Men in New York, and he'll be talking about Martin Luther King's legacy on this day, which is set aside in this country to honor him. But first we begin with a report I did when I encountered Dr. King on this historic march, the March Against Fear in Mississippi.
I had envisioned Dr. King as being much taller than he was. He was just over 5.5 feet tall. What he lacked in physical height, he exhibited in stature of character. As he interacted with others on the March Against Fear, I saw a powerful personality who knew how to electrify and inspire others. He was an engaging man with the ability to articulate his message. He was a wordsmith, as was evident in the reaction he gave me to the shooting of James Meredith, the man who broke the color barrier at the University of Mississippi.
I think it is indicative of the fact that we still live in a morally inclement climate filled with torrents of hatred and jostling winds of violence. And I think many levels of our society must take responsibility for this.
It was 3 years after King's I Have a Dream speech. Rednecks often taunted the marchers, and Dr. King soothed tensions with his protestations for peace. His voice echoed above the militant cries for black power by others. I was taken by King's ability to unite people. He told me he was confident the shooting of Meredith and other violence would only strengthen his movement's resolve.
I don't think it has instilled more fear. Often people rise to their best in moments like this. Through suffering and violence, people often decide that they are more determined. So I don't think this is going to intimidate Negroes at all. I think it will make them more determined.
And I witnessed King's determination firsthand as he stopped to inspire school children, and when he waved into the cotton fields, beckoning, "Come on, children." Each person who joined his march represented another victory for civil rights. The most poignant moments came during a break along Mississippi's Highway 51, when I asked Dr. King why he put himself out of the forefront, putting his life at risk. He looked me in the eye and declared, "For the children, for the children."
For the children, for the children. Those words, very powerful. They've resonated with me many years since that day back in 1966, 60 years ago. Dr. King has left an impact on all of us. And he delivered such powerful speeches. You were too young to know Dr. King.
Agreed.
But his legacy lives on. It's incredible. Monica, you too. You know him through history.
I'm so glad you're doing this, Marvin, because today we have to hear this right, Erik.
Yeah.
I mean, the work that you're doing.
Dr. King, remains an icon in the African American community. I mean, really in the United States. His message for a world where everybody is recognized, everybody's seen, that children have an opportunity to have a full life, have an opportunity to be engaged, employed, have great education. That's all part of his dream, and probably as important back in 1966 as it is today. I think that his message is still eminent. It's still exceedingly important. And I'm so happy that we have a holiday to celebrate his life and legacy, because we need not let that go.
He
Certainly in America.
he certainly knew how to communicate. He knew how to motivate. He knew how to inspire. I watched him. I watched how he dealt with people. I watched him, the way he dealt with those who were taunting the marchers, the people who were so anti-Negro. Negro is the word you're going to hear in this interview because that was the word they used then. They didn't call them blacks. They called them Negroes. You'll hear a reference to that in the interview that's coming up.
Marvin, did you know you knew you were in the presence of greatness? You could feel it, right? What can you describe? None of us have actually experienced that greatness. So I'm just curious, like when you were with him, did you feel that power? Did you feel that he was changing the world?
I didn't feel at that point he was changing the world. He was trying to. And he was trying to do it in such a peaceful way. I was so impressed by him, the way he would deal with these people who were on the sideline, who were taunting the marchers and looking to stir trouble. He would say, stop, halt. He was a father figure to those who joined the march. I remember one moment along Highway 55, he waved out into a cotton field. He said, come on, children, come on. And slowly, all these people started emerging across the cotton field, and they joined the march. And each one who joined the march was another victory for the civil rights movement. It was really something to watch. It was my first foray, my first visit into the Deep South. It was overwhelming how he was able to capture these people. As I said, he was somewhat of a father figure. And there's an interview I did with him. It was along a dirt road on Highway 55. It was during a break in the march. I had gone across the road to a motel to file my radio report and came across, it was a broiling hot day. And I picked up a couple of Cokes from the vending machine, crossed the road. There was Dr. King sitting on the side of the road in a mound of dirt. I'd already met him. I said, Dr. King, can I join you? I sat down with him for about 10 minutes. And that's when I did the interview.
So you drank a Coke.
I offered him. I took one of the Cokes out of my pocket. Dr. King, would you like a Coke?
Eric and I are very jealous. Wouldn't we love to have that? I mean, that's a dream.
Would have loved to have been there. I mean, people say that words don't have power, but, Dr. King was such an orator, and he was able to inspire so many people.
He inspired me, I tell you. It was. Yeah. You asked me, did I sense the greatness at that time? I knew this man was very special, and I knew there was a future for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that was he was part of a movement. There was James Farmer, and there was Floyd McKissick, and the others in the civil rights movement who also spoke eloquently.
Mm-hmm.
It was a special moment. I'm going to play right now 2 minutes of that interview. That's the first time it's being played since it appeared on the Mutual Broadcasting System 60 years ago.
I can't believe it.
Give a listen.
Long time.
How do you feel this reign of terror you speak of can best be eradicated?
Well, I think it can only be eradicated by a more firm and forthright stand on the part of the federal government. There's a bill in Congress now seeking to make murder or threatened assault on civil rights workers and persons in pursuit of constitutional rights a federal crime. I think it's urgent to get this bill passed, and I think it's urgent to get it passed immediately because the climate of terror is still with us.
Dr. King, Meredith said that he was out to get rid of the fear in the South. Do you think this incident had just the opposite effect and has instilled even more fear in the Southern Negro?
Well, I don't think it has instilled more fear. Often people rise to their best in moments like this. Through suffering and violence, people often decide that they are more determined. So I don't think this is going to intimidate Negroes at all. I think it will make them more determined.
Do you think this incident will trigger violence in the nation's Negro ghettos?
Well, I certainly hope not. As you know, I'm a devotee of nonviolence, and I think it's our most potent weapon. On the other hand, I do feel that we must face the fact very honestly that acts of violence like this cause many people to begin to feel bitter and seek to retaliate. And I think if militant stands are not taken against this kind of thing, even though I will continue to preach nonviolence with all my might, many of my words will fall on deaf ears.
In your statement last night, you said that the federal government was responsible for this act. Could you elucidate, please?
Yes, I think it's responsible in the sense that the federal government has been all too slow. It has procrastinated in all too many instances in dealing with the whole problem of protecting the lives of individuals. Even where there has been statutory authority to do something, it's been all too slow. And this is why I think that the federal government has to assume a great deal of the responsibility.
Have you been in touch with President Johnson or Attorney General Katzenbach?
I've been in touch with the Attorney General about it. I talked with him shortly after I received the news, and talked about the fact that the federal government needed to take a strong stand in this instance because it's definitely in the Voting Rights Bill in Section 2 that the Attorney General has the authority to deal with it, because it becomes a federal crime when you intimidate anyone seeking to encourage others to vote.
Did Mr. Katzenbach give you any assurances?
Yes, he said that they were going to move into this situation forthwith and that they plan to engage in forthright action.
I need to know, Erik, what do you think listening to that? What would, to have those 10 minutes with a legend like that? Marvin did such an incredible job. What would you ask?
I'm not sure what I would ask necessarily. I think I'd be in awe to be in, I mean, knowing his legacy, knowing that he's so great, but I still want to get his thinking about the politics today and what steps we ought to be taking to deepen, his commitment, and how do we address the issues that are, eminent in our communities. I mean, we still have issues around education. We still have housing issues. We still have financial issues. Equality is still a question. There are services in our government that are going after immigrants that are in this country. I mean, I think that he would be opposed to all of those sorts of things. Dr. King.
I want to explore more of that. Let's take a break, and then when I come back, we'll talk with Erik Cliette, who's the executive director of 100 Black Men in New York. We'll be right back.
Marvin, who's that handsome, skinny kid on the left there?
I think I must have been in my 20s. I don't know. It was a moment, and a thing hanging over me was a tape recorder. As I was with them, on that march for about a week, and it was an experience. I remember a moment. It was a very touching moment. Young man named, I remember the name, Armstead Phipps, a sharecropper who joined the march against the wishes of his family. He had a heart condition. They told him, don't go. He joined the march in the sweltering heat. I think on day 2 of the march, he passed out and he died. And under this big oak tree, he lay Martin Luther King, Jim Farmer, Floyd McKissick, other members of the civil rights movement, stood over him and recited the 23rd Psalm. 60 years later, I get touched by that moment, standing there, watching. He was a man who was not known by anyone, but here he became a champion of the civil rights movement, giving his life, joining a march, and died right there along Highway 55, the sweltering heat, and having the leaders of that movement praying over him. It was a moment I never forgot. Armstead Phipps was his name. And I remember finding a story about it. It was very moving.
I think these stories are amazing. So many children, Americans, period, need to hear these stories to really understand where we've come from and where we're headed. I'm appreciative that you have captured this and are sharing it again now. I'd never heard of, Mr. Armstead Phipps before. So thank you for sharing that with us. That's a
Erik, let me ask you, what do you feel Martin Luther King's legacy is?
hope. I think his legacy is hope. Hope for America, hope for America's children, hope that men and women in the United States can live a better life. That there's equality available to everybody in this country. I think that that is his legacy. I think that's what we all live for. We all hope for. It's the reason that we keep standing up. We feel like, America is meant to be this really, really great place for everybody to live. Everybody can be educated. Everybody can have a job. Everybody can do well. I think that that's what he spoke about. I think that that's what he was dreaming for. I think that's part of his dream for this country, and we're still in the process of getting there. So I think that that is his legacy, and which is why it resonates with so many people. Doesn't matter where you come from.
You say in the process of getting there.
Right.
Would he be pleased by what he would see today?
I don't think so. I think that in some areas he would be happy. The fact that there are colleges and universities that accept Black, white, Asian, and other folks, wherever in the country. But there's so many situations where immigrants are not welcomed. People are starving. Housing is not great. I mean, all of those things, I think would sadden Dr. King. But as I said, he would identify the great things that America's done. Highlight those, because you should be rewarded and, for the good things that you do. But as it relates to all of the maladies for, Americans, Black, white, and otherwise, I think he would also be saddened. His dream has not really come true yet.
But things have gotten much better in the South, where I was with him in 1966. But they called them Negroes, and they had these riots, and you couldn't sit in the bus.
Yeah,
Things have changed there. They've improved there.
Things have changed. You have to actually be in the South to know whether things have actually improved. I mean, you have an opportunity certainly to ride the buses, and you can drive your car, you can go places. But underneath that, there's always this undercurrent of, can I get the jobs that I want? Am I still seen as an equal? I'm not so sure that things have changed. I think the optics are different, but I'm not sure that things have actually changed.
If Martin Luther King were here today, would he be getting along with the current administration in Washington?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that he would be one of the loudest voices in this country speaking out against the current administration.
The situation with ICE?
Yeah, exactly. I think that Dr. King was a man who thought that all people deserve human rights. I mean, civil rights is about all people. And to the extent that this country is built on immigrants, I think Dr. King would be, again, saddened, and his voice would stand against some of the actions that the current administration has or thinks about as it relates to immigrants being in this country and folks being deported, families being separated. I don't think that Dr. King would be in favor of that at all.
At this moment, let's transition. 2 years after I joined Dr. King on that March Against Fear in Mississippi, I was with him again in April of 1968. A very dark moment in American history. The day he was shot and killed in Memphis, Tennessee. I was in New York at the time. The bulletin flashed. I called my news director at Mutual Broadcasting. They got me on the next plane, and I was down in Memphis about 10 hours after he was shot, standing in front of the Lorraine Motel. I want to read a passage what it was like out there a moment, but it was almost as if Dr. King prophesied his own death. The night before, on April 3rd, 1968, he spoke before a Mason temple. And here were a couple of his words.
I've been to the mountaintop.
I've been to the mountaintop. Those were just a few of his words. Let me read the passage from my book, As I Saw It, A Reporter's Intrepid Journey. I chronicle my total experience with Dr. King in life and death. But after he said, "It really doesn't matter with me now because I have been to the mountaintop," as you heard him say. And I don't mind, like everybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. I'm happy tonight, he concluded. I'm not worried about anything. 24 hours later, Martin Luther King was dead at the age of 39. Killed by a bullet shot by James Earl Ray from a rooming house 200 yards away from Lorraine Motel. When I arrived, I stood outside the Lorraine Motel, and I think I best describe it in my book. You need my glasses. There was a chill in the air as daylight filtered through the early morning clouds outside the Lorraine Motel, where Dr. King had been shot hours earlier as he stood on the balcony of a second-floor room. It was the dawning of one of the darkest days in American history. And for me, it was surreal to stand there, looking at stone-faced police officers overseeing an active crime scene against the backdrop of disbelieving mourners gathered in the parking lot with their eyes swollen from tears. A young Jesse Jackson first emerged that day as the self-declared spokesperson for the King family. He spoke of the civil rights leader's greatness and the impact of his loss. Jackson was with King when he was shot, and he claimed, "I cradled him in my arms." It was a moving moment many years ago, but it lives on. It lives on in the words of my book. It lives on in my soul. I remember that moment very well. It was a tragic moment. Sure you remember it through the history books.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it made Dr. King a martyr, which is great for America in so many ways. Folks could empathize with his story. It brought all sorts of attention to the movement that he cared about so much. I mean, I hate that we lost our leader, but I think in his martyrdom, I think the world respects what he worked for. I think the world paid attention to what he'd given his life for. So there was even power. You have to look for the silver lining even in a tragic situation.
He was so young, 39.
Yeah.
Had he lived, do you think he would have gone on to even greater greatness into politics, perhaps? Run for president? He did have he did see that.
Yeah.
In that interview I did with him, he did see a future where there would be a black president in this country. And do we judge a man not by the color of his skin, but the greatness of his character? We're pretty close to the quote.
Content of his
Character,
character. I think that he probably would have stayed away from politics. I think he probably would have been an advisor to great politicians. I think that his backing as a civil rights leader, also being a minister, would have allowed him to steer clear of the politics. But I think he certainly would have been an advisor to some other great leaders coming along. I think he'd have been a great advisor to Mr. Obama. Should he been alive? I think that if Mr. Jackson had gone on to become president, Dr. King would have been a great advisor. I'm not sure that he wanted to be president.
He would love what Erik is doing. He would be holding your hand and smiling at what you're doing, the 100 Black men, and the legacy that you continue, the hard work that you're doing with our children right now, right?
That's thoughtful of you to say, Monica. Yeah, we try to work really, really hard to make sure that children from all of our communities have an opportunity to be their best selves. It's the work that we do. It motivates us. We pride ourselves of being one of the largest mentoring organizations in the
best organization. How do we support you and find out more about 100 Black men?
Well, you can always go to our website, which is www.ohbm.org. We've got a gala that supports the work that we do on March 18th. We do a golf outing. I don't know if you play golf, Marvin, but we'd love to have you come out and play golf.
I'll
with
come
us.
out and cheer for you.
Come out and cheer
I
for
can't
us.
play either.
And we have our Dr. Martin Luther King program on the 19th. It's a virtual program where Dr. Charles Gibbs, who's the president of Metropolitan College of New York, who will actually lead the keynote address to hundreds of our kids that we'll have on a virtual platform. And I invite you all to participate. I'll certainly send you the links. But there's all opportunities to kind of relive the memory of Dr. King. And I thank you for the opportunity to kind of share that.
Oh, thanks
with
for
you.
being here. I want to share a moment with you. After Dr. King was shot, murdered, I was at the R.S. Lewis Funeral Home before it was open to visitors. I happened to be there, and there is a picture which surfaced from the guy in the back there. I was recording the moment where Ralph David Abernathy, who took over the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Andy Young, and other members of the Civil Rights Movement arrived. The casket was open. Dr. King lay there in peace. The bullet shattered his cheek, but they worked on it. It looked like he was just peacefully sleeping. No sign of the wound. I heard crying from the front pews, women dressed in black. It was a tearful moment. I remember Ralph Abernathy leaning into the casket, touching Dr. King's face and saying, "Martin, Martin." And he, Andy Young, and the others stood there reciting the 23rd Psalm. It was such an emotional moment, and for me, it also turned out to be one of the most frustrating moments of my entire career. I was standing there silently describing the moment and listening, picking up the sound, my tape recorder. When it was all over, I got outside to play what I had, or not I had done. The tape had caught around the capstan or whatever it was. It jammed. I had nothing of that moment to record. The two other reporters who were in the funeral home with me at the time offered me their tape. I had the natural sound, but there was no way of recapturing my description of that moment, which I still remember 60 some odd years later so vividly. Back in 1968, April 5th or 6th.
We're recording it now. We're finally hearing that moment through your words, and a new generation is hearing it. Thanks to you. You're the living recorder of that moment, right, Erik? I was just thinking that. I'm like, it's kind of poignant that it didn't work then, but it's working now. We can hear you, and we can feel his spirit with us.
And this is the time we need to hear the stories, because so much has been lost. The history of Dr. King, and that you bring this to life now, I think is...
I capture some of that in my book, and sometimes I look at it and I relive what I lived back then. It's interesting looking back at history and bringing it to the present.
That's why you memorialize it in your book. It's a beautiful
It's so important.
Yeah.
I had another moment where I went to the Brewer boarding house, 200 yards away from the Lorraine Motel. It was after the police left. I walked in. Stench is still with me. Oh, gosh. And I walked into the bathroom from which James Earl Ray took his shot. With one foot standing on the tub, 1 foot on the toilet, I looked out the window. You didn't have to be a marksman at that shot. I think I have a picture showing perspective from that window of the Lorraine Motel. James Earl Ray, initially he admitted shooting him, then recanted later on. He spent many years in prison, dying, still professing his innocence. But there was no one else who ever came forward. James Earl Ray, who assassinated Martin Luther King. So those were the days, and those are my memories, and they're still vivid as we celebrate Martin Luther King so many years later on this special day set aside for him.
Thank you for sharing your history, your memories. As I said, they're important to certainly the boys and girls, to Americans across the board today. That history does not live in the forefront of many people's minds. I think it's important. And I think it's so interesting that he was such a powerful man, that he was such a threat.
Yes.
And I think you kind of showcase that in your words, that he was such a threat that folks wanted to get an end head, or folks wanted to tear down, what he had built. Folks attacked his dream. It's interesting that one man could be so powerful that almost frightened a nation. Sounds like.
I did. I remember the day I arrived in Atlanta for his funeral, and I got in the cab to my hotel, and I was sharing some of these stories with the cab driver. Said, you met Martin Luther King? Yes. He was so overwhelmed by it. He started crying because he said he met someone who actually touched the hand of Dr. King. We got to the hotel, went to pay him. He wouldn't take my money. I insisted. He said he didn't want it. He said, because Dr. King, I loved him. I loved him.
Yeah.
And that's the sentiment that lives in the hearts and minds of so many people today.
Yes.
We love him on this special day. We memorialize him.
Well, we read the stories, we see the videos, but for some reason, when we hear you talk about it firsthand, right, there's something about, I got a chill.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I'm stunned by you, Marvin, and these stories, because I feel like everyone needs to hear this. They need to,
thank you.
yeah, I hope everyone's watching.
Monica, Erik, Cliette, 100 men, Black men in New York. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and joining us
Thank you for having
on
me.
this podcast.
Thank you for having me. Maybe you'll have me back someday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
just
Monica.
leave you with this thought. As we honor Dr. King today, we should commit to all of us to carrying forward his dream of equality and justice for all. On that note, we'll say thanks for joining us. I'm Marvin Scott. See you next time.